My wife wanted to outsmart me. She was planning to take half my properties and move in with her sneaky link coworker. But she wasn't smart enough, and I had to pull a fast one on her. She really didn't see it coming. Hello. Thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Tracy Smiley from Andrew, Alberta. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's dive into the details of today's story. I used to think Lauren and I had it all figured out. 7 years of marriage, and we were the couple people envied at dinner parties. The ones who finished each other's sentences, laughed at the same dumb memes, and knew how to navigate each other's moods. She was the planner, mapping out our weekends from coffee runs to movie nights. I was the improviser, surprising her with takeout from that Thai place she loved after a long day. It wasn't flawless, but it was ours, a rhythm that felt effortless, or so I believed. Our living room was a snapshot of our life together. Framed photos lined the walls. Our wedding in that tiny chapel her parents adored. The Bali honeymoon where she burned her shoulders so badly she couldn't wear a swimsuit for days. The Asheville road trip where we got lost and ended up laughing in a diner at 2 a.m. The coffee table held her magazines and my half-finished crossword puzzles, a chaotic testament to us. Even the couch, faded gray with a wine stain from a clumsy movie night, seemed to anchor our history. But lately, something had shifted, a subtle fracture I couldn't quite pinpoint. It began with small signs, easy to overlook if you weren't watching closely. Lauren had always been tethered to her phone. Her marketing job demanded it, her inbox a constant battlefield. But now, she carried it everywhere, even to the bathroom. Before, it would sit on the kitchen counter, screen up, notifications flashing. I'd tease her, saying, "What, you're running the CIA now?" And she'd roll her eyes, tossing it aside. Now, it stayed in her pocket or clutched tight, a lifeline she guarded. One night, I reached for the remote on the coffee table, and her hand darted out, snatching the phone before I could graze it. "Sorry," she muttered, her voice sharp. "Just work stuff." Work stuff. That became her shield. I wanted to believe her. I did. Lauren worked harder than anyone I knew, staying up late to tweak presentations, pacing the kitchen on client calls across time zones. I admired her drive, the way she threw herself into everything. But this was different. It wasn't just the phone. It was the way she glanced at it, her thumb hovering, as if expecting something or someone. Then came the Tuesday night that cracked the facade. I was sprawled in the living room, half watching a documentary about deep-sea creatures, the narrator's voice a dull hum. Lauren was in the kitchen, washing dishes, the clink of plates a familiar rhythm. Her phone buzzed on the counter, and I glanced over, catching a notification from me. Just E. No last name. A brief preview. "Call me when you can." She grabbed the phone, froze for a split second, her body tensing like she'd been caught, then forced a casual smile. "I'll be right back," she said, her tone too polished, and headed for the garage. The garage, not the bedroom or porch, but that dim space with its buzzing fluorescent light and faint smell of motor oil. I strained to hear, the documentary fading to static in my ears. Her voice filtered through the door, low and urgent, whispers I couldn't fully catch. "Just a little longer," I thought I heard, followed by, "We'll figure it out." My stomach twisted, a knot of doubt tightening. "Figure what out?" She returned, her face flushed, her smile too wide. "Sorry about that," she said, dropping onto the couch. "Client stuff. You know how it is." I nodded, but my mind raced. Client stuff didn't make her whisper in the garage. At 9 p.m. client stuff didn't make her hands tremble as she reached for her water glass. I stayed quiet that night, unwilling to push, afraid of sounding paranoid, like one of those husbands in movies who see betrayal in every shadow. Lauren wasn't like that. She was loyal, devoted, the woman who'd spent hours planning my birthday just to see me smile. But the doubt lingered, growing with every glance she stole at her phone. The signs piled up. She'd started locking her laptop, a new habit that caught me off guard one morning when I tried to check my email on it. "Security," she said when I asked, her voice clipped. With all the hacking going on, we'd always been open, my passwords, hers, no secrets. Now, conversations faltered, She'd dodge questions about her day, steering us to safe topics like the weather or my coding projects. I tried to bridge the gap. Date nights, flowers, a botched dinner where I burned the chicken, and we laughed like old times. For a moment, with her head on my shoulder during a Netflix comedy, it felt real. Then her phone buzzed, and she pulled away, tapping a reply, her warmth fading. That night, I lay awake, the ceiling a canvas of shifting shadows from passing cars. Lauren slept beside me, her breathing even, her arms sprawled across the pillow. I wanted to dismiss it as nothing, to chalk it up to my imagination. But the garage call replayed in my head, just a little longer, looping endlessly. I remembered our finances, the joint account, the mortgage, my startup equity. We'd kept things loose, separate, but shared, built on trust. Now, I wondered, what if she was hiding something? What if E wasn't a client? What if I was missing a bigger picture? My heart pounded, my hands clenched, as I realized I couldn't ignore it any longer. The next morning, I brewed coffee, the machine's hum a dull comfort. Lauren moved through the kitchen, her phone tucked in her pocket, her smile not reaching her eyes. For the first time in 7 years, I felt a distance I couldn't cross, a stranger wearing her face. The kitchen felt colder that morning, despite the sunlight streaming through the window and the coffee machine's steady hum. Lauren sat across from me, scrolling her phone, her thumb flicking the screen like she was hunting for something. I watched her, steam curling from my mug, searching for the woman who'd laugh at my pancake flops or steal the last bacon strip with a grin. But her face was taut, her gaze dodging mine, her presence a shadow of what it once was. I wanted to ask about the garage call, about E, about the locked laptop, but I held back, the words stuck in my throat. Busy day today? I asked, keeping my tone light. She didn't look up, just nodded, her fingers still moving. Yeah, meetings all morning. You know how it is. I did, or thought I did. Her job was relentless. She'd come home late, hair tangled, voice hoarse from Zoom marathons. I'd make tea, listen to her vent, and we'd collapse together, her head on my chest. Now, her replies were curt, mechanical, meetings, work, busy, like she was ticking off a list. I sipped my coffee, nodding, but my mind churned. Meetings didn't explain the garage whispers. Meetings didn't explain the phone clutched like a lifeline. Work dragged that day, my screen a blur of code I couldn't focus on. I was good at solving problems, breaking them into logic and syntax, but this defied reason. Lauren was my wife, my partner, the anchor of my life. Yet every memory of her, those whispers, that frozen moment, tightened a knot of doubt until my breath grew shallow. I replayed the garage call, the urgency in her voice. Just a little longer, we'll figure it out. Figure what out? I tried to dismiss it as work stress, but the pieces didn't fit. Thursday night, she cracked the silence. We were in the living room, the TV murmuring a cooking show we ignored. She sat on the couch, legs tucked under, phone in her lap. I sorted bills on the floor, seeking distraction. Hey, she said, her voice too casual, too practiced. I was thinking, maybe we should organize everything. Accounts, passwords, all that stuff. I paused, a utility bill in hand, and glanced up. Organize? I asked, my tone even. She nodded, eyes on the TV, avoiding mine. Yeah, just in case, emergencies, you know. It's smart, right? Emergencies hung in the air, heavy, ominous. We'd never discussed emergencies like this. Our joint account covered bills and groceries. My savings, her investments, my equity stayed separate, trusted, unspoken. What kind of emergencies? I asked, my words measured, my pulse quickening. She shrugged, still dodging my gaze. I don't know, just life stuff. What if something happens to one of us? Or we need to decide something fast? Her logic was sound, practical, but her delivery, polished, rehearsed, made my skin crawl, a script she'd waited to recite. I forced a smile. Yeah, I guess that's a good idea, I said, but alarms rang in my head. Why now? Why this sudden push when we'd thrived on trust? The next day, doubt consumed me. At work, my code blurred into gibberish, her words looping. Emergencies, just in case. I needed answers. I logged into our joint account, using our wedding date as the password, simple and sentimental. The balance seemed normal. Groceries, utilities, restaurant tabs. But digging deeper revealed a pattern. Small withdrawals over the past month. $500 here, $300 there, labeled miscellaneous or cash. Not glaring alone, but together, nearly $2,000 vanished, unexplained. My stomach clenched, my hands trembling. What was she doing? Gifts? Parking? But why miscellaneous? Why the secrecy? We'd always shared big expenses, even small ones. She'd laughed showing me her laptop receipt last year. No, nothing. That night, I called Mark, my best friend since college, a financial advisor who could unravel tax codes like fairy tales. He'd been there for my highs and lows, breakups, weddings, my startup's launch. I paced the living room while Lauren was at yoga, keeping it vague. Hey, quick question, I said, my voice wavering. If you were worried about protecting assets, what would you do? A pause, then his calm reply. Worried about what, exactly? I spilled it. The garage call, the phone secrecy, the withdrawals, the sudden financial push. It's probably nothing, I said, my tone cracking, but it feels off. He weighed his words. I'm not saying something's up, but you're not crazy for being cautious. Act now, better safe than sorry. He outlined steps, trusts, transfers, legal protections. You can do it quietly, he said. No one needs to know unless it's necessary. My hand shook as I considered it, drastic and foreign, like gearing for battle. But her whispers, those withdrawals, the rehearsed pitch, it added up, and I couldn't unsee it. If she was planning something, I had to shield myself, not just my money, but the life we'd built. I hung up, my jaw tense, and sank onto the couch, the cooking show still droning. Lauren's words haunted me, sharp and unsettling, and I knew I couldn't wait. Trust was fraying, and I had to act before it snapped. The living room was dim when I got home, the street lamp's glow casting jagged shadows across the floor. Lauren wasn't there. She'd texted about a late work thing. I sank onto the couch, the stillness pressing in, my mind a tangle of doubt. Mark's advice echoed, act now. Better safe than sorry. I wanted to believe I was overreacting, that E was a client, that the withdrawals were innocent. But the garage call, the locked laptop, the $2,000, it gnawed at me, a puzzle missing pieces. It started with Ethan's name. She dropped it casually at first, a coworker slipping into her stories. Ethan said the funniest thing today, she'd laugh, her eyes sparking in a way they hadn't for me in months. Ethan's been a lifesaver on this project, she'd say, or Ethan thinks that new sushi place is worth a try. I brushed it off, coworkers, friends, normal chatter. But the mentions grew, a steady drumbeat. Ethan, Ethan, Ethan. His name soured in my mouth, a splinter I couldn't ignore. Late one night, past midnight, I scrolled her Instagram, a habit I'd abandoned. Her posts were sparse, work shots, selfies, rare glimpses of us. But there he was in the comments, his gelled hair and smug grin taunting me from his profile pic. Looking strong, Lauren, under her gym selfie. You've got this, beneath an office shot, her smile tight but bright. Then, a tagged photo. Ethan and Lauren at that coffee shop, the one from the garage call day, captioned, caffeine and chaos with this one. My stomach churned. It matched the date I'd overheard starting fresh. I clicked his profile, public and shameless, gym flexes, bar nights, work events. Another photo showed him at her office, their shoulders brushing, her laugh frozen in frame. I didn't confront her then. She came home late, hair messy, eyes weary. Long day, she said, dropping her bag, her phone already out, tapping a reply. I watched, silent, needing more than suspicions. The next day, I tracked every sign, her secretive smiles at her phone, Ethan's name slipping into her chatter like it belonged. Saturday brought clarity. She'd mentioned a work party at a downtown hotel, shrugging it off as boring networking. I said I'd be coding late, but instead, I drove there, parked a block away, and watched through the glass lobby. She was there, hair up, black dress sleek, laughing with him. Ethan, his hand on her arm, their bodies too close, too familiar. My breath fogged the window, my hands clenched as I saw it. Not coworkers, but something more. Sunday, I faced her. She was in the kitchen, pouring coffee, her phone screen down on the counter. I leaned in the doorway, my pulse quickening. Who's Ethan? I asked, my tone calm. She paused, the pot trembling, then turned, feigning confusion. Ethan? He's a co-worker. You know that. I stepped closer, shaking my head. No, Lauren. Who is he to you? He's all over your posts, your life. Last night, at that party, you weren't just co-workers. It didn't look like it. She sighed, her eyes narrowing. You're spying now? She snapped, grabbing her phone. It's a work event. We're friends, he's supportive. Not everyone's out to get you. I held her gaze, her words hollow. I'm not spying, I said, my voice firm. I'm paying attention, and I don't like what I see. She brushed past me, muttering, You're overreacting. Get over it. Her dismissal fueled me. That night, I called Mark, pacing the living room, my voice low. It's Ethan, I said, the name bitter. He's involved. I saw them together. I think she's planning something with him. The withdrawals, the financial push, it's connected. Mark paused, then replied, If you're sure, act fast, before she does. He reiterated the plan, transfer assets, set up a trust, protect my savings and equity. Use your sister, he said. It's legal, clean. I hesitated, staring at my dark laptop screen, the weight of it crushing. It felt like war, a betrayal of our vows. But Ethan's grin, her dodge, the hotel scene, it crystallized my resolve. I called Emily, my older sister, practical and fierce. I need you to hold some things for me, I said, my voice tight, just in case, a precaution. She paused, sensing the gaps. Are you okay? I lied. Yes, but her worry seeped through. Of course, she said. Whatever you need. That night, with Lauren out, I sat at my desk, laptop humming, hands trembling. I logged into my accounts, savings, investments, $150,000 in equity from my startup, years of grinding. I initiated the transfers to a trust under Emily's name, each click a stab of guilt, a shield against dread. When I finished, my breath was shallow, my hands still. Lauren returned, her smile forced, kissing my cheek. Want to watch something? She asked. I agreed, but inside, I churned, guilt clashing with relief, a man at war with his own trust. The house felt heavier that week, the air thick with unspoken tension. Lauren was a ghost, physically present, emotionally gone, her phone a constant tether. I clung to routine, breakfast, coffee, the dishwasher's hum, but normalcy slipped away. I'd locked down my assets, my savings and equity safe in Emily's trust, a shield against the unknown. It should have eased me, but it didn't. It sharpened the edge, a blade poised to fall. She turned affectionate, a shift too sudden to trust. Monday, she suggested a date night, her voice bright. Let's hit that Italian place. You love their tiramisu. I nodded, wary, watching her laugh too loudly, touch my arm too often. We went, the candle flickering between us, her chatter about work and Ethan relentless. He's been such a help, she said, twirling pasta. You'd like him. My stomach twisted, but I sipped my wine, silent, waiting. Tuesday, she brought home flowers for me. Just because, she said, her eyes pleading, the stems cold in my grasp. I wanted to feel gratitude, but suspicion coiled tighter. Why now? Why this act? Wednesday night, she broke it. The living room was dim, TV off, silence deafening. She sat on the couch, hands clasped, face composed. I sat opposite, my pulse quickening, sensing the storm. We need to talk, she said, her voice cold, practiced. I think we should get a divorce. The word struck hard, stealing my breath, but I kept my face blank. I'd braced for it, yet hearing it cut deeper. She continued, her tone rehearsed. I need space. I've lost myself, my identity, in this marriage. I need to figure out who I am. Clichés, hollow and scripted. Then, her edge sharpened. I've made sacrifices for you, she said, eyes narrowing. And you don't appreciate them. I deserve more. Sacrifices. Deserve more. It wasn't just an exit. It was a claim, a debt she pinned on me. I wanted to counter. Her career moves I'd backed, the yoga retreats I'd budgeted for, the love I'd poured in, but I held back, watching. Then she slipped. A friend's been helping me see things clearly, she said, her gaze flicking aside, showing me what I need, what I deserve. Ethan. His name burned unspoken, a shadow pulling strings. I stayed calm, my tone even. If that's how you feel, I said, we should figure out the next steps. She blinked, startled, expecting a fight, a plea. But I gave neither, my focus shifting to Ethan, to their plan, to the truth I'd uncover. The divorce papers arrived Thursday, a thick envelope, cold and official. I spread them on the kitchen table, reading each demand. Half the house, for $100,000, $200,000 in assets, my startup equity, spousal support, despite her high salary. Aggressive, precise, guided. My hands trembled, my mind racing. She wasn't just leaving. She was stripping me bare, every dollar I'd earned, every dream I'd built. Spousal support? With her income? It defied logic, but not intent. I reread it, the audacity sinking in, Ethan's influence a ghost between the lines. I called Mark that night, pacing, my voice firm. She filed? I said, the papers stark on the coffee table. She wants everything. House, savings, equity, support. It's too calculated, Mark. He paused, then replied. You were right to transfer the assets. They're safe. She can't touch them. Get a lawyer, fight this. I agreed, resolve hardening. I will. But I need to know more. Ethan's role, their plan. This isn't over. I hung up, my jaw tense, fingers relaxed. Lauren was at her sister's, or so she'd said. I didn't care. Trust was gone, replaced by a cold clarity. I remembered her act, the date night, the flowers, a distraction to keep me docile. Ethan's shadow loomed, his betrayal a thread weaving through her demands. Our marriage, our life, it was a game to them, and I wouldn't lose. Not my future, not my trust, broken beyond repair. The mediation room was stark, gray walls, and a creaking table amplifying the chill. I sat beside Karen, my lawyer, her papers crisp and ready. Lauren faced me, her lawyer, a navy-suited man, flipping a thick binder, her eyes fixed downward, hands clasped. She avoided my gaze, her composure a mask I couldn't pierce. I sat still, my breath even, prepared for the storm. The trust shielded my assets, I'd acted in time. But facing her now, the weight pressed harder. Her lawyer began, voice slick and assured. My client seeks an equitable division, he said, sliding a document over. Half the marital home, valued at $400,000, $200,000 from savings and investments, equity from Mr. Carter's startup, and spousal support to offset financial disparity. He paused, eyeing Karen, then me. Given Mrs. Carter's contributions, including career sacrifices, these are reasonable. Reasonable? The absurdity stung, but I stayed silent, watching Karen nod calmly. They'll push hard, she'd warned, but they've got nothing. She slid a stack of papers across, her movements precise. Before we proceed, she said, her tone steady, review these. Lauren's lawyer took them, his confidence faltering as he scanned the pages, his shoulders slumping. What is this? He asked, voice tight. Karen met his gaze. These document the transfer of all major assets into a trust under my client's sister's name, completed weeks before the filing, fully legal and irrevocable. Silence fell, sharp and heavy, the rustle of paper the only sound. Lauren grabbed the documents, her eyes darting over signatures and dates, her face paling. This can't be real, she muttered, her voice trembling, then glared at me, fury breaking through. You planned this. You knew I'd file and set this up to ruin me. I stayed quiet, her words a storm I let pass. Her lawyer turned to her, frustrated. You didn't mention this, he said flatly, accusatory. Karen leaned in, calm and cutting. The transfers predate the filing, dates clear, signatures notarized, trust solid. Your demands rely on assets no longer in Mr. Carter's name. Reconsider your approach. Lauren slammed the table, her eyes blazing. You're unbelievable, she snapped, her face red, hands trembling. After everything I've done, everything I've given up. I watched, unmoved, her rage a plea for reaction I wouldn't give. This wasn't about her sacrifices, it was about my survival. The session ended fast, her lawyer mumbling about rethinking strategy, defeat in his tone. Lauren glared as we left, grabbing my arm in the hall, her grip fierce. This isn't over, she hissed, venom lacing her words. You'll regret this. I met her stare, my tone calm. I regret trusting you. That's enough. She flinched, her hold loosening, and I walked away, her threats fading behind me. Driving home, my hands gripped the wheel, my mind racing. Karen's precision had dismantled them, but victory felt hollow, a war I hadn't sought. Ethan's shadow lingered, his role unclear, their plan a riddle I needed to solve. That night, I found proof. Lauren's old tablet sat forgotten on a shelf, buried under magazines. I powered it on. No lock, an open door. Messages loaded, dozens between her and Ethan, my pulse quickening as I scrolled. Make him feel guilty, Ethan wrote. He owes you. Push for everything. House, equity, all of it. Lauren replied. I will. Keeping him calm until it's done. Another. Once we get the settlement, we'll have everything to start fresh. My stomach clenched, the screen glowing in the dark. It wasn't just a divorce. It was a heist. Ethan the architect, her affection a ruse to disarm me. I called Mark, pacing my voice firm. I found texts. Ethan's guiding her, telling her how to bleed me dry. It's all here. He paused, then said, share it. With friends, family, anyone who needs to know. She's not just leaving. She's trying to destroy you. I agreed, resolve hardening. I will, but I'll play it smart. This isn't over. I hung up, my jaw tense, fingers still, the house quiet around me. Lauren was at her sister's, or so she claimed. I didn't care. Trust was ash, and I'd fight with the truth, not just for my assets, but for the life I'd reclaim. The days after mediation roared like a tempest, Lauren's calls crashing in relentlessly. At first, they were soft, calculated pleas. Daniel, can we talk? She asked in a voicemail, her tone gentle. This got messy, but we can fix it. Please call me. I sat on the couch, phone glowing in the dark, my breath even, unmoved. The text from her tablet burned in my mind. Ethan's orders, her compliance. It was a performance, not remorse, and I wouldn't bite. By day 2, her mask slipped, anger seeping through. You're cruel, she spat in another message, words slurred. Taking everything, leaving me nothing. You're selfish. My hands clenched, her venom sharp, but I stayed silent, Mark's advice ringing. Don't engage. She's desperate. When calls failed, she spun tales. Friends reached out, voices tentative. Lauren says it's a hoax. Tom said, awkward. A prank, is that true? I laughed, bitter. A prank with lawyers and demands for half my life? He sighed. Yeah, didn't add up. Others echoed it, her story fraying as they questioned the legal papers, the spousal support. She pivoted, telling Sarah it was a test of our marriage. My asset transfers the betrayal. Sarah met me at a coffee shop, eyes downcast. She said you went too far, she murmured, broke her trust. I almost believed her. I held her gaze, my tone firm. And now, she sighed. Ethan pushed her. I didn't see how deep it went. I'm sorry. I shared the texts with Mark, who passed them to Tom, and they spread. Ethan's make him feel guilty. Lauren's, once we get the settlement. Friends recoiled, their support shifting. She lied to us, Tom said, angry. You don't deserve this. Neutral voices turned cold, her allies fading. Sarah stopped answering her. Tom cut ties online. Even her sister called, voice soft. I thought you were wrong. I'm sorry. I agreed, my pulse steady. I get it, I said, meaning it, her words a balm on raw wounds. Lauren's world shrank, her narrative collapsing under truth's weight. Ethan vanished, his desk empty at her office, his number dead. He used her, Sarah said, bitter, hyping her up, then bailing when it crashed. I nodded, staring at rain-streaked glass, unsurprised. He'd fed her greed, then fled when she had nothing left to give. Her calls shifted, desperation raw. Can we talk? She begged in one message, voice cracking. I'll fix this. I don't want to lose you. Later. You don't have to forgive me. Just settle this. I'll drop it all if you talk. I listened, my breath shallow, but stayed silent. It was too late, her pleas hollow, a cornered animal's cry. Emily arrived the next day, paint cans in tow, her energy a lifeline. We're reclaiming this place, she declared, scanning the room. It's yours now. Let's make it feel like it. We painted the living room beige, warm and fresh, covering the couch stain with a throw. She rearranged furniture, swapped photos, erased Lauren's echo. "You're tougher than you know," she said, hand on my shoulder, eyes bright. I agreed, my jaw tense, the space lighter, mine again. The paint fumes lingered as I sank onto the couch that night, the storm outside fading. Lauren's isolation, Ethan's flight, our shattered past, they loomed, but I was ready. Friends and family stood with me, and I wasn't alone anymore. The courtroom was hushed, a weighty stillness settling over us. I sat in the back, suit stiff, beside Karen, her papers crisp and poised. Lauren sat across, her lawyer whispering, her eyes locked on the judge, hands tight. I watched, searching for regret, anger, anything, but felt only a quiet void, a space cleared for something new. The judge's voice cut through, firm and even. "The trust established by Mr. Carter is legal and irrevocable," he said, scanning us. "Assets transferred pre-filing are protected." He paused, eyeing Lauren's lawyer, who nodded, pale. "With Mrs. Carter's demands dismissed, the marriage is dissolved. Mr. Carter retains the home, savings, and equity." The gavel struck, final and sharp, the room exhaling. I leaned back, my pulse steady, hands still. It was done. My house, my savings, my future secured. Lauren's lawyer muttered, but she stayed silent, staring blankly. I expected triumph, relief, but found quiet instead, survival, not victory. She left fast, her lawyer trailing, their steps fading. I signed papers, thanked Karen, her words steady. "You protected yourself. Not everyone does." I smiled faintly, but my mind drifted to Lauren's fall, Ethan's shadow, the life we'd lost, and the one I'd built. Her family called that weak, voices cautious. Her sister spoke first, soft and hesitant. "I didn't know her plan. I thought you were wrong." "I'm sorry, Daniel." I agreed, my heart pounding. "It's okay. I get it," I said, meaning it, her words easing old scars. Her brother followed, gruff and awkward. I took her side, shouldn't have. "Sorry, man." I nodded, my tone calm. "Thanks," I said, the closure settling in, a step beyond forgiveness. Rebuilding began small, deliberate. Emily returned, paint cans clinking, her smile bright. "We're not done. This is yours now," she said. We painted the kitchen yellow, catching the morning sun, hung new curtains, soft and calming. "You've got this," she said, hand on my shoulder, eyes steady. I agreed, the space lighter, mine again. I picked up photography that month, a DSLR in hand, joining a club, capturing sunrises, streets, moments frozen in light. My first print, a sunrise in orange and pink, hung in the living room, a quiet symbol of renewal. Friends re-entered my orbit. Tom's barbecue, Sarah's hesitant smile. "You look stronger," Tom said, clapping my shoulder. "She didn't break you." Sarah nodded, soft-spoken. "You didn't deserve it. I'm glad you're okay." I smiled, meaning it, their presence a tether to something solid. The house glowed now, paint fresh, curtains swaying, the sunrise photo catching dawn's light. I sat on the couch, the stillness comforting, and remembered Lauren's pleas, her fall, Ethan's flight, scars that lingered but no longer ruled. Trust had shifted, redefined. I'd given it wholly to Lauren, built our life on it, and she'd shattered it with Ethan's aid. But now, I trusted myself, my instincts, my resilience. I trusted Emily's fierce support, Mark's steady counsel, Tom and Sarah's loyalty. I trusted the future, mine to shape. Standing at the window, I watched the sunrise bloom, my breath even, hands still, a quiet hope stirring. The sun rises daily, unwavering, and so would I. Turning back, the room warm and mine, I smiled. This was my story, and I'd write it anew. Thanks for joining me on this story, a story of betrayal, resilience, and reclaiming what matters most. If this tale hit home for you, or if you've got your own story of rising above the ashes, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to hit that like button if you felt the weight of Daniel's fight, and subscribe to the channel for more audio stories that dive deep into the human heart. Ring the bell so you never miss a chapter of what's next. Until then, keep writing your own story, because every sunrise is a chance to start fresh. See you in the next one.